During a destination wedding in Greece, my husband whispered, "Everyone here is so free. We should try it." I brushed it off until I caught him in a moonlit dance with the bride's sister. When I confronted him, he shrugged. "It's just the culture here." Smiling coldly, I held up my phone. "Then you won't mind if I show the groom?" His face went pale as the music stopped. I never thought my marriage would end at a wedding in Greece. It was my best friend Isla's big day. She and Theo had been together for years, and their wedding in Santorini was supposed to be this beautiful, once-in-a-lifetime event. She had been planning it forever. Destination weddings are tricky, people dropping out last minute, expenses piling up, but Isla had pulled it off. The moment I stepped onto the island, it felt unreal. The postcard views, the white buildings stacked against the cliffs, the Aegean stretching out endlessly. It was the kind of place that made you feel like you were in a movie. I was there with my husband, Mark. We had been married for 8 years. I thought we were solid. Sure, the spark had dimmed a little over the years, but we still had our inside jokes, our routines, our quiet understanding of each other. We were partners. I had no idea I was about to find out just how wrong I was. The first night, there was a welcome party. A rooftop bar, warm breeze, fairy lights. It was one of those nights where everyone looked effortlessly happy. The kind of night where you forget real life exists. Mark and I were standing near the bar, watching the dance floor, when he leaned in and whispered, "Everyone here is so free. We should try it." I laughed. I thought he meant the atmosphere. The way people danced like no one was watching, the way wine flowed endlessly, the way the air itself felt lighter. I didn't think twice about it. I should have. I noticed him watching Sophia a little too long that night. Sophia was Isla's younger sister. Tall, blonde, glowing in that effortless way some people just are. She had always been a flirt. The kind of person who made everyone feel like the most interesting person in the room. But I didn't think anything of it. Mark was friendly, Sophia was friendly, and it was a wedding. People were laughing, touching, dancing. The second night, there was a bonfire on the beach. More wine, more music. People dancing barefoot in the sand. It was all so beautiful that it felt like nothing bad could happen. I had lost track of Mark for a bit. I figured he was talking to Theo or getting another drink. Then I saw them. Mark and Sophia. Dancing. Not just any dancing. His hands were on her waist. Her arms were around his neck. Their heads were close, like they were sharing a secret. She was laughing into his ear, and he was looking at her like she was something to be discovered. Something went cold inside me. I walked up to them, trying to keep my voice light. "Having fun?" Mark looked startled, but only for a second. Then he smiled, like I was a fool for even asking. "It's just a dance, babe." Sophia gave me a sweet smile, too sweet. I nodded. Smiled back. Walked away. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling in our hotel room, listening to Mark breathe beside me. I told myself I was overreacting. That it was the wedding, the drinks, the way people let loose in places like this. The wedding day arrived. The ceremony was stunning. Isla was glowing. Theo looked like he had won the lottery. Everyone was crying, cheering, throwing petals. I told myself to forget it. I told myself to enjoy the day. I tried. I really did. By the time the reception started, people were on their second or third drink, dancing under the fairy lights strung between olive trees. The speeches were done, the formalities over. The music had shifted into something looser, deeper. People were moving closer together. I lost Mark in the crowd again. I walked around, checking near the bar, near the dance floor. Then I spotted him, behind the venue, away from the lights, near the trees, with Sophia, kissing her. Not a drunk slip, not a brief mistake. A full-on, hands in hair, bodies pressed together kiss. Everything inside me went silent. I don't even remember walking up to them. One second I was standing there, frozen, and the next I was right in front of them. Sophia gasped and stumbled back. Mark turned, eyes wide, then blank. "It's not what it looks like." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Really?" My voice didn't sound like mine. "Because it looks like you're making out with my best friend's sister at her wedding." Mark exhaled hard, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's just the culture here. People are affectionate." I held up my phone. The screen was still recording. His face changed instantly. "Then you won't mind if I show the groom?" I said, voice cold. The music in the background felt too loud. Laughter from the guests clashed with the crushing silence between us. Sophia bolted. Mark grabbed my wrist. Okay, please. Don't do this here." "Oh, you mean don't do this in public where everyone can see?" I yanked my hand away. "Should have thought of that before you shoved your tongue down someone else's throat at a wedding." His jaw clenched. "We can talk about this." I turned and walked back inside. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But I knew I was done. Mark's fingers tightened around my wrist. "Wait," he said, his voice low. "Just wait a second." I yanked my arm away. For what? Another excuse? His face was unreadable now. Not angry, not panicked, just still. Too still. Like he was doing math in his head. I grabbed my phone and walked out of the hotel room, my heart hammering in my chest. The hallway was eerily quiet. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, casting everything in that strange, in-between light. I needed answers. Who sent that photo? And why did they say I saw him first? My gut was screaming at me. Something about this was bigger than just one night of cheating. I scrolled through my messages again. Clicked on the unknown number. No profile picture. No name. I typed, "Who is this?" The 3 little dots appeared. Whoever they were awake. Then, a new message popped up. Check your voicemail. My stomach dropped. I hadn't even noticed the notification. My hands were shaky as I pressed play. A woman's voice. Whispering. He's lying to you. He's been lying for a long time. The message ended. I froze. Because it wasn't Sophia's voice. It was someone else. I felt like the walls were closing in. Mark hadn't just made one mistake. He had been hiding something deeper. I walked straight to Isla's hotel room. Knocked hard. A few seconds later, she opened the door, still wrapped in a hotel robe, her hair a mess. You're up early, she yawned. Everything okay? No. Not even close. I stepped inside, shut the door behind me. I need to ask you something. She frowned. What's wrong? I held up my phone. Do you know this number? She took the phone, squinting at the screen. Shook her head. No. Why? I exhaled, debating how much to tell her. Someone sent me a picture. Of Mark and Sophia. Kissing. And then they left me a voicemail. Her mouth fell open. What? I played the message. She went pale. She swallowed. That's not Sophia. I know. My pulse was thudding in my ears. She sat down on the bed, gripping the robe tighter around herself. This doesn't make sense. I sat next to her. Isla, be honest with me. Do you know if Mark has? My throat closed up. I couldn't even say the words. She looked away. My stomach turned. Isla. She inhaled sharply. She pressed a hand to her forehead. I didn't think it was my place to say anything. I felt like I was about to throw up. Say what? She bit her lip, looked like she was about to start crying. There were rumors. A cold sweat broke out across my skin. Rumors? She nodded, eyes glistening. I heard things. From other people. About Mark. About other women. A wave of nausea rolled through me. Other women. Not just Sophia. I clenched my fists. And you didn't think to tell me? She looked miserable. It wasn't proof. It was just whispers. And I didn't want to hurt you. I shot up from the bed, pacing. How long? She swallowed. A while. I squeezed my eyes shut. My marriage wasn't just ending. It had already ended. I just didn't know it. But someone else did. And they were making sure I found out. Who's watching? My phone vibrated again. Another message. Room 214. Now. I felt Isla stand up behind me. What is it? I showed her the screen. Her eyes widened. That's Theo's room. I blinked. Theo. She nodded slowly. Yeah. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. Why would Theo be texting me from a fake number? Only one way to find out. I grabbed the door handle. I have to go. Isla grabbed my arm. Do you want me to come with you? I shook my head. I need to do this alone. I walked out before I could change my mind. Room 214 was at the end of the hall. I knocked. Silence. Then, the door creaked open, just a sliver. Theo's face appeared. He looked exhausted. His tie was loosened, his shirt wrinkled like he hadn't slept. He stared at me for a long second before sighing. Come in. I stepped inside. The room was dim. Curtains drawn. The smell of whiskey lingered in the air. Theo sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. You saw the messages? I crossed my arms. That was you. He nodded. I couldn't breathe. Why would you send me that? His jaw clenched. He stared at the floor. Because I needed you to know the truth. I stared at him, my skin prickling. About Mark? His head snapped up. His eyes met mine, sharp and unreadable. No, he said. About Sophia. A cold shiver ran down my spine. What? Theo exhaled, rubbing his face. Mark is an idiot, yeah. But Sophia? He shook his head. She does this. I frowned. Does what? He looked me dead in the eye. She finds married men. And she destroys them. I stood there, my heart beat a dull roar in my ears. She finds married men, Theo said, voice low. And she destroys them. I forced myself to swallow. You're saying she does this on purpose? Theo nodded, rubbing his temple like this conversation physically hurt. I've seen it before. She plays this game. It's never about the guy, it's about the wife. The destruction. The chaos. She enjoys it. I felt sick. That doesn't explain why you sent me those messages. He sighed. Because I knew it would happen. I saw the way she looked at Mark. I warned her to stay out of it. But Sophia, he shook his head. She doesn't stop. I sat down hard on the chair near the window. My whole body felt shaky. Why would she do this? Theo leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She's been like this since we were kids. She's never cared about rules or boundaries or who she hurts. I gripped my knees. And Mark? Theo scoffed. He's just another idiot who fell for it. I exhaled sharply. Why tell me now? Why not stop it before it got to this point? His jaw tensed. He looked guilty. Because I thought Mark would be different. I let out a bitter laugh. Well, he wasn't. Theo hesitated. There's something else. My breath caught. What? He hesitated just long enough for my stomach to drop. She's done this before. With someone you know. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Who? He looked me straight in the eye. Your last boyfriend. Before Mark. I shot up from the chair. No. No way. He nodded. I felt the walls closing in. My last boyfriend, Kyle. The one before Mark. The one who had cheated on me and shattered my trust. I had spent years picking up the pieces after him. And now I knew Sophia had been the one holding the hammer. I stormed toward the door, but Theo grabbed my wrist. What are you going to do? He asked. I turned to him, my voice steady but sharp. And this. I found Mark and Sophia together. Of course I did. They were near the bar, talking in hushed voices. She was smiling at him, her fingers grazing his arm. He looked conflicted, tense, but not pulling away. I didn't even hesitate. I marched straight to them, phone in hand, anger like fire in my veins. Sophia saw me first. And she smirked. Like this was all some game. I raised my voice, loud enough for the whole damn reception to hear. You really can't help yourself, can you, Sophia? People turned. Conversations dropped to a hush. Sophia just blinked, feigning innocence. What are you talking about? I shoved my phone screen toward Mark. Did you tell her? That someone sent this to me. His eyes widened. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. I turned back to Sophia. You do this on purpose. You enjoy it. Her expression didn't change. I don't know what you mean. I let out a sharp laugh. Really? Because Theo just told me you did the exact same thing with Kyle. Something finally flickered in her face. A split-second crack in her perfect act. Then she recovered, her lips curving into something almost amused. Well, she murmured, tilting her head. You do have a type. A murmur spread through the crowd. Isla had appeared at some point, her face twisted in confusion and horror. Theo stood behind her, arms crossed. Mark finally found his voice. What the hell is going on? I turned on him. That's what I should be asking you. He shook his head, exhaling like he was trying to gather his thoughts. Look, He glanced around at the watching eyes, then dropped his voice. Can we talk about this in private? I laughed. Loud. Oh, you want privacy now? That's rich. Sophia folded her arms, watching like she was being entertained. I turned to her. You win. Her eyebrows lifted. Excuse me? I gestured between her and Mark. You got what you wanted. Another married man. Another wrecked relationship. Mark flinched. Sophia just smiled. And that's when Isla lost it. What the hell is wrong with you, Sophia? She snapped, shoving past people to get between us. Sophia rolled her eyes. Oh, relax, Isla. Relax? Isla's voice cracked. You just ruined another marriage. At my wedding. What kind of person does that? Sophia's smirk faded. Mark stepped forward, reaching for me. I swear, it was a mistake. I didn't. I stepped back. Don't. His face fell. You had a choice, I said, voice even. And you made it. The air between us was heavy. Then, from the crowd, someone spoke up. A man I barely knew, one of Theo's cousins. This isn't the first time I've seen her do this, he muttered, nodding toward Sophia. She tried with my brother last year. Almost broke up his family. Gasps rippled through the guests. Another voice piped up, one of Isla's childhood friends. She did this to my coworker, too. More murmurs. More shifting. Sophia's expression finally changed. Her jaw clenched, her fingers twitching at her sides. She liked playing games. She didn't like losing them. Mark looked around, his face getting paler by the second. He had been so focused on what I would do that he never considered what everyone else would say. And now, he was standing in the middle of a crowd of people who knew exactly what he had done. He turned to me one last time. Please, let's just talk. I shook my head. There's nothing left to say. And then, I turned and walked away. I didn't go back to our hotel room. I packed my bags, booked the next available flight, and left before the sun even rose. Mark tried calling. Texting. He even sent long, desperate emails. But I never answered. Because I had already spent years giving him my time, my trust, my love. And he had thrown it all away for nothing. Isla called me the next day. She told me Sophia had left the wedding early, furious at being exposed. She told me Theo wasn't speaking to her. She told me Mark got drunk that night, sitting alone at the hotel bar, looking miserable. I didn't feel sorry for him. I felt free. It's been months now. The divorce papers are filed. Some nights, I still wonder how I didn't see it sooner. How many signs I ignored. But I don't blame myself anymore. Because some people, they choose destruction. And I choose myself. And that's the only choice that matters.